You know, I'm going to give you a history lesson.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country.
Stop laughing! And when I do, start.
Also, y'all did some nasty-ass jokes on my ass, too.
Funny jokes and unfunny jokes come out of the same birth.
You f***ing guys are unbelievable.
Why are you laughing?
Evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Why Are You Laughing, a history of comedy podcast. And today, I am pleased to introduce to you Mike Myers. This episode is going to be shagadelic, baby. I didn't commit to it. I had it in my head. I didn't commit to it. But here we are.
Shagadelic is up there for sure.
Well, put this one in your belly, folks, because we're covering the catchphrase king. Mike Myers, who kind of underappreciated for what his career is in a way. Because I think if you think of 90s comedy, you think of Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler as far as movies go. But Mike Myers is right in that realm. Like, he has 3 legitimate franchises. If you count Shrek, I get it's a kid's movie and everything, but he has 3 major franchises and was huge on SNL and like Mike Myers was an impactful name in comedy that really did kind of fall off. I'm torn on whether or not I should put this in our downfall series. But the reason I want to do it is because you could definitely argue Mike Myers had much more of a downfall than Will Ferrell, who we did an episode on. So we may call this the downfall of Mike Myers, but that just means we're studying like what exactly happened, because it seems like this happens with a lot of comedic stars, where even like we talked about Bill Murray, who pivoted to more serious, for lack of a better term, roles. Like, it wasn't, wacky comedies that he was making in the 80s. So we're talking about the career of Mike Myers today, a comedy legend, no matter how you slice it up. And if you want more episodes like this, or if you want early access, if you wish you had this a week ago, then go to blindmike.net. That's where all our links are, not just for Why Are You Laughing, but also the Blind Mike Project, which is every Sunday at 10 a.m. Who Are These Socials links are up there as well. And you can become a member on Patreon or YouTube. You can get early access to these episodes as well as bonus content that we do. And not just Why Are You Laughing content either. I think when this comes out, we will be doing another episode on Julia Fox's book. Me and Carl will be diving back into that. So check out all the wacky stuff we do. For Patreon and YouTube members, if you'd like, or just support the show for free. It helps more people find us. If you like, subscribe, comment, and share with a friend. Tell people you know to check out this podcast. All right, let's get into it. Mike Myers, I think we're starting in his childhood years, right?
Yes, and just before we get started, you have a guess on his net worth.
200 million.
That's spot on.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems about right, because he had like an epic run and was in control of 2 of those series. But what's weird about Mike Myers is he wasn't cast in a lot of stuff. Like, he put himself in 2 major franchises and then was the voice in a Shrek movie. But like, you didn't see Mike Myers pop up in a lot of things other than, of course, SNL, with a few exceptions, which we will talk about later in the episode. But let's start with his childhood, because his acting days started very young, which I didn't realize about him.
You were acting in television commercials at 11?
8. Gilda Radner played my mom in a TV commercial.
Really? Before she was, obviously before.
She was at Second City, and she'd been in a show, Godspell, with
Catherine O'Hara?
and Martin Short and Eugene Levy.
Uh-huh.
And so she did this commercial, and she played my mom, and I fell in love with her. It was a 4-day shoot, and at the end of it, I cried, and my brothers called me Sucky Baby. So it'd be like, hey, Sucky Baby, your girlfriend's on this stupid show on Saturday. It doesn't even have a name.
So you had a crush on her that lasted?
Yeah. God, I loved her so much. She was so funny and just beautiful. And so
what was the commercial for again?
British Columbia Hydroelectricity. I ended up getting cut out of it.
But you met Gilda.
I met Gilda. It was fantastic.
What other commercials did you do?
Kit Kat, Applejack, Sunlight, BC Hydro, Datsun, Kmart shoes, Wrigley Spearmint gum.
Big ones.
Seems like he had those recited, which is pretty weird.
Probably like a song.
Listing is, yeah, that's how he remembers his commercial resume. Yeah, it's funny too. In love with Gilda Radner, but he famously tells the story. He did not watch SNL as a kid. Like it wasn't as big in Canada when he was a boy, so he wasn't really from. He knew he knew Gilda Radner from the show that he mentioned with that like SCTV type of crew. So interesting start. Like I didn't realize he was kind of a child actor thrust into comedy, and I think it is true of a lot of these guys that had appeal to a massive kids audience, but they weren't really kids movies. Like Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler are kind of that way as well, where a lot of Eddie Murphy also, a lot of their influence comes from things that happen in childhood. Like Mike Myers, very close to his father, like, you know, a lot of his voices come from his family. Like Shrek is his dad's voice, things like that. So like there's a lot of influence when they are young. And it goes back to, I think the Matt Damon quote is like, your maturity level is, I'm paraphrasing, but your maturity level is the age you are when you get famous. That's kind of when you stop maturing. And that might be part of it with Mike Myers, where like you get famous at a certain age and that's your comedy maturity. And then it kind of stops after a while. And that's what we saw, I think, with Will Ferrell as well, where it's like, okay, yeah, we got the joke. They didn't keep growing and evolving. That's their type of humor. You even hear like sucky baby that he says his brothers called him. That feels like a Wayne's World joke or something, you know?
Next, we have him talking about finding a stage.
Yeah, so he was not, he was, I guess he dabbled in comedy, so to speak. Was sort of a stand-up when he started, but he was just looking for anywhere to perform.
In high school, outside of commercials.
I did workshops at Second City, and I did commercials, and then I would do the character Wayne Campbell in front of punk bands. I would do little comedy things in front of punk bands.
You had sort of a stand-up act.
I did, but I just was looking for a stage. You know, they always says, you know, theater is 2 planks and a passion. You know,
right? And
I just gave a commencement speech to Canadian performers, and I said, then go to Canadian Tire and buy yourself a couple of planks, you know?
Yeah.
Don't wait to be discovered. Discover yourself.
But you were doing
Don't wait to be hired.
Right.
Hire yourself.
Right.
So I started the Comedy Store Players in London that became the Whose Line Is It Anyways cast. It's now the longest running play with the same cast in the history of theater.
Yeah, so Whose Line Is It Anyway was not his show, but he did like discover that group, I guess, which is there's a couple interesting footnotes in history that he has like that, like these weird, he also had a relationship with Kids in the Hall, like these weird kind of brushes with people. There's also a story, I don't know if this is true, I don't know how true this is, but like there's a story from his childhood where John Candy lived near him in Canada and was very famous, obviously. And as a kid, like he went to John Candy's house and was like, can I have some advice, Mr. Candy? And John Candy was very nice to him and like gave him some good advice. And then years later, John Candy, like not knowing he was that kid, went up to him and was like, hey, Mike, I saw, whether it was Wayne's World or Austin Powers, whatever, I guess it would have been Wayne's World probably, like congratulated him on the movie. And Mike Myers told him that story, which if true, pretty cool.
Next, we have him talking about getting SNL with Dana Carvey and David Spade.
Yeah, so like I said, by the way, this Fly on the Wall podcast was an atrocity based on things we're going to talk about. I couldn't believe they didn't mention his beef with Dana Carvey or anything. I was all excited to listen to that and bubkiss in the interview. But I did get this takeaway talking about his SNL, I was going to call it audition. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone else with this story. I'm sure there's another example that I'm just not aware of. But I don't know anyone else who's gotten SNL and became a big figure on there that did not have to audition. But Mike Myers is one.
I technically was the alumni at Second City Toronto, and there was an alumni show, and Martin Short saw me there and recommended me to Lauren.
Yes, I know that part of it.
Then I didn't audition. I just got called, and I was just in the cast, and I didn't really actually know I was hired for the first little while exactly. And even Lauren, I was in the hallway, and he said, well, what are you doing here? And I was like, I work here.
No, you're right.
He said, well,
why are you on 9?
Yes.
why are you cross-legged by the elevator bank? And I was like, I don't have an office. He said, get off the floor or something like that.
Well,
and I was like, didn't I meet you and you hired me?
well, going full.
Wait, Mike, so you did, hang on. Let me ask him.
Yeah.
He didn't. So, Mike, you didn't have the stress of knowing you were having an audition. Really, it just Martin Short saw you and then said he recommended.
100%. If I had auditioned, I wouldn't have got in. That's 100% true.
God,
I'm the shittiest auditioner that's ever.
So kind of crazy. Like I said, I can't think of anyone. Leave it in the comments if you know another example. But I can't think of anyone that didn't have to audition for SNL because those are always like the classic stories. How'd you get SNL? Well, let me tell you about my audition. It was crazy. But Martin Short, he was at this alumni thing for Second City. Luckily, Martin Short was there, and they did a sketch together where Mike Myers was kind of making fun of Martin Short in a way, like this tongue-in-cheek thing he was doing. Where he was mocking the idea of Martin Short name dropping celebrities in the way of like, John Carson, like this shorthand, like to let you know that I know these celebrities. That was the kind of premise of the sketch. And for Martin Short, because if Martin Short just said to Lorne Michaels, hey, I saw this kid from Canada, he's pretty good. That probably doesn't resonate with Lorne Michaels. That had to be a really ringing endorsement for Lorne to be like, all right, no audition, he's in.
That's also crazy that story did not lead to them talking about Lorne Michaels and that whole beef. He did the impression.
It is so frustrating. So we're going to talk about Dana Carvey's beef with Mike Myers, but it all stems from the Lorne impression. And they have talked about it. Dana told Howard Stern, like we're going to hear clips from Howard Stern. Dana went back on Howard Stern and was like, we squashed the beef. We had this, kind of heart to heart, and it's all good now. But we didn't get to hear any of that. And it was the most interesting possible thing that could have come out of that interview. Dana Carvey and David Spade. I like David Spade a lot, but they're both terrible interviewers for that show. I wish that Fly on the Wall show was like, it's sad to say, because one of them is no longer with us, but the two best guys would have been Jim Downey and Norm Macdonald. But Jim Downey would be awesome on that show as a host. Jim Downey and, I don't know, Robert Smigel, man. I don't know if he has the curiosity for it, but like, Jim Downey and another writer doing that show would be awesome. Dana Carvey and David Spade just don't give a fuck about who they're interviewing. So it's not what you want it to be, unfortunately. But that's not what this episode's about,
No, but here is Dana Carvey on with Howard Stern.
Okay, yeah. So the Lorne beef, if you don't know, Dr. Evil supposedly is based on Lorne Michaels, or at least that's the impression. Like that's where the impression comes from. And everyone says Dana Carvey is the first guy to really do Lorne. So Dana Carvey has held this resentment towards Mike Myers for that character.
But for me, it's like with Mike too. It's getting late. I have a lot of affection for him. I mean,
but was there a rift over the Dr. Evil character?
We never really talked about it. I talked about it to the therapist, and I basically let it go.
You did, but you felt that for a while. You felt like, the Dr. Evil character is Lorne, obviously. And it's a funny thing with impressions. Once somebody figures it out,
yes,
then the whole world can do it.
The best way to learn. And part of, Mike's talent is his ability to see things like, so for him to pick out Bohemian Rhapsody for Wayne's World was a brilliant thing. And when I finally did the impression for Lorne, it's a thing. And the Pinky thing was a made up thing. Lorne doesn't do that, but somehow it fit,
You came up with the Pinky thing.
Well, the Pinky thing I did do. Yeah.
So I understand this from a musician standpoint. And since you see things musically, if a guy writes a song, that's his baby.
Yeah.
When you come up with an impression, it's kind of your baby.
Right.
And so when you go to the premiere of a movie and you're rooting for Mike because he's your buddy and you've known him all these years, and then you see Dr. Evil, it's like, well, wait a second, that's the song I wrote. That's the music I heard in my head. And that Pinky thing is that thing that I uniquely do.
But you know what? I did it backstage. I just thought, well, I can't do this publicly because, I'm going to be biting Lorne Michaels, the hand that fed me.
Right.
But in the end of the day, I have to say that Mike, the construct of Austin Powers was brilliant. It's a great character. And he, after a while, everyone started doing Lorne,
Right.
But I think in the end of the day, as you go through life and you get beat up by all kinds of things, I was very lucky to intersect with Mike Myers.
As Seth Green said on Entourage, that Pinky bought him a house in Malibu.
That's right. Speaking of babies, I think Dana's being a little bit of a baby when it comes to like blaming Mike Myers for. I don't see it as theft, quite frankly. I will say it's good for Dana. Now it's interesting. You literally went to therapy to get over this, and you don't bring it up when you interview the guy, which is frustrating as a fan. But it's good. It's good that he came to that place of acceptance and was like, "Hey, this is a guy. We made a lot of money together, and we made a lot of great comedy together. So, like, I'm gonna get over it, and that's good for Dana." But to be like if you're critiquing comedy and you're judging whether or not Mike Myers stole this voice,
the Pinky's a problem.
That's a little weird. But to me, like, so I listen to Seth MacFarlane talk about how he does impressions, or even like Caliendo will talk about this, where it's like, well, this voice is actually a combination of this guy and that guy. You know what I mean? Or Caliendo does these things on TikTok where he's like, if I do Al Michaels, if I go a little deeper, it becomes Ray Romano or whatever the fuck he does. Like, you hear guys talk about how like impressions or voices or characters come from these culmination of other things. Dr. Evil is not named Lorne Michaels. He's not the head of NBC in that movie. Lorne Michaels has never tried to blow up the world in exchange for $1 million. Like, the character is not Lorne Michaels, you know? Like, that impression is based on it. But I think it took a few years for people to be like, oh, that's where that voice comes from. Like, people didn't even really know it. It's just a voice that Mike Myers chose to use. Yeah, the Pinky is interesting. I get where Dana would be like, well, what the fuck, man? You kind of couldn't I play Dr. Evil? I guess that's where I think Dana's resentment comes from is, hey, couldn't I have played Dr. Evil?
Yeah, I don't know if he was necessarily being a baby. He was kind of trying to be like, I let it go, man. And Howard Stern's like, well, let's not let it go.
Well, but Dana is like, I let it go, but here's all the things that bothered me about it. So it's not really, you know what I mean?
And at this point, they hadn't talked about it, right?
They had not talked about it. So evidently they talked about it. And Dana was like, hey, water under the bridge, man. It's all good. But our next clip suggests that Mike Myers didn't even steal it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what to believe. Now I'm back on Dana Carvey's side because I actually don't believe this story.
I don't either.
This is Mike Myers talking about his Lorne impression that he just casually slips in with Mark Maron here.
I'd always done an impression of Lorne Michaels.
Before you even worked there?
Yeah, because he was on a show called the Hart and Lorne Tea for Terrific Hour.
You remember that, or you watched footage of it?
No, I used to watch it.
Even Maron is like, come on.
Yeah, he was on a TV show, kind of.
The Tea for Terrific Hour, where we all know Lorne Michaels. Oh, that guy went on to other things?
Funny. Lorne was really funny.
He was in a comedy team, basically.
Yeah, Hart and Lorne.
And you remember that?
Of course.
Well, you were like,
we were culture vultures, dude.
But you were 8.
By the way, there's tons of teacher strikes growing up.
Maron is not letting him get off. He was like, you were 8 years old.
Maron was as shocked as I was. I don't really believe that he saw some fucking TV show that Lorne Michaels was on and was like, I'm going to do an impression of that guy for the next 50 years. He was 8 years old. Mike Myers is like 63 now or something like that.
Right.
So,
and your brothers were watching that stuff too.
Yeah.
When did you have your first Lorne impression? At 10?
10, yeah.
10, sorry. I don't know if I buy that. That feels like a thing where Mike Myers is, I'm sure he did see Lorne on a TV show when he was a kid. But
or
it seems
a very
like
convenient thing he looked up after the fact and was like, this is awesome.
Possibly. But it's weird for a guy who's like, I never saw SNL before I got on. And also, I've done a Lorne Michaels impression since I was 10 years old. It seems impossible.
Seems like that would have been in his audition had he been auditioned.
Yeah. So I went back and forth on that because I was like, oh, Dana, stop your whining. It's not true theft. But then when I hear Mike Myers say that, it's like, oh, maybe he's hiding something.
If I didn't know that Dana Carvey was doing the Pinky thing, so I will put that in the theft category.
And you know what? I had the realization while we were talking. I'm like, oh, he's pissed. It wasn't even the theft. Dana's pissed he wasn't Dr. Evil, which makes sense.
Yeah, like, or even asked or whatever. Like,
and I think Mike Myers looks at it and says, like, I don't want to do another franchise where people say, I don't want to be a comedy duo. You know?
Well, you
like
should.
he wanted to be Eddie Murphy, not a duo. You know?
Well, he should have been a duo. It worked out really well, as we're about to hear about Wayne's World.
It did. I mean, Austin Powers worked out pretty well too. But yeah, let's hear about Wayne's World.
I did You Mock Me, which is an Al Franken sketch.
Yeah.
Then I wasn't on the show for the second show, and I thought I was going to get fired. Then I wrote Wayne's World.
SNL, obviously.
When I wrote Wayne's World, it was a sketch I had done on Canadian TV on a show called It's Only Rock and Roll. And it was kind of my big character, you know? So I wrote it on a yellow pad, and I wrote it till about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I put it on the big pile of submissions. And that the next morning, the secretaries type them up, and they make the packs of scripts that you read at the read-through table. You have to hand it in by noon. So I was there at 4 o'clock in the morning. I just handed it in. One of the senior writers came in and went to the pile and started looking at people's scripts, which as a Canadian, I was like, you can't look at the pile.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The pile. You know, he's looking at the big board. So he looks through the scripts, and then he picks out mine, because mine was the only one that was on yellow pad, written like a serial killer. Had terrible handwriting. And he went, is this yours? And he read it, and he took it off the pile and put it on the read-through table some 15 feet away. And I thought, what just happened? Like, I didn't know, like, I was only being there for 3 days. I didn't even know where to eat my lunch.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Right.
Like, hey, fellas, do you eat your lunch at home?
Yeah.
Does the wife make your lunch?
Does everyone go out to lunch together?
Yeah, what's the deal?
Yeah.
Well, with those prices down in the cafeteria, but I guess they got you an over. Guys, where are you going? Guys, wait up.
Yeah.
Had nothing, right?
Yeah.
Another writer comes in who had obviously spoken to the first writer, goes to the table, reads it, and says, oh, man, you're not going to hand this in, are you? It sucks. It sucks. And he throws it on the floor.
Yeah.
It's 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is my big sketch. I'm dead.
Yeah.
And I had that kind of like, gonna cry, gonna maybe crap my pants.
Yeah, yeah.
I want my dad to come pick me up. You know, that horrible thing.
Yeah.
And something just reached back to the scruff of my neck, lifted me up, pulled me over to my sketch. I put the staple back in and put it on the pile and walked home.
Yeah. So, you know, that makes sense to me. The idea that, you know, other writers read Wayne's World at first and were like, this sucks. Because I think that sketch and that movie, like, that's carried by those two guys.
Right.
Like, in the wrong hand, that could be a shit sketch or a shit movie.
I imagine if you read the script, it's not funny at all.
Just reading the word swing, you don't think is getting a lot of laughs?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you need those two guys to be attached to it. And Mike Myers, as you know, another reason Dana Carvey could have some resentment is Mike Myers himself said the reason he chose Dana Carvey as Garth in that sketch is because he wanted the sketch to get on air. And Dana was already kind of popular at the time. Like, this is when Mike Myers got there, this was like kind of in the midst of a resurgence for SNL. Like, there was a big lull after Eddie Murphy left, and Dennis Miller was already there and popular, and Phil Hartman and Dana were already there. But like, this is very early in that process, and this is like the real resurgence of Saturday Night Live. And so, like, just think of it this way. I mean, Blues Brothers is like an SNL movie, but before that, there really weren't, like, other than that, there weren't SNL movies per se. And then you have Wayne's World, which is this massive two-part phenomenon. So Wayne's World is a big deal. And I think you need the kind of confidence like that that it took for Mike Myers to put that script back on the pile that it takes. And he goes on to explain how it did.
So we got the sketch. He goes, Wayne's World. Lauren looks around. He goes, do we really want to read it? And I went in my hand. I went, hell yeah. Like this as a joke.
Yeah.
And then he looked up at me and sort of like, are you ready? You know, this table will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
He said that?
He looked at me like that.
Okay.
And I went like that. And I read it. And it killed.
Yeah.
It killed. It killed. And Lauren got this delighted look on his face. Writers back there were like, oh no. It killed.
Yeah.
And then it got in the show. I had no idea what to do.
Third show.
Yeah.
And it killed.
Killed.
And that was the birth of the Mike Myers career.
And I was on my office was my sketch being on at 5 to 1, the last sketch.
Mm-hmm.
So all of my sketches started at 5 to 1 and moved earlier in the show because the ratings by 5 to 1 are absolutely nothing.
That's a very interesting aspect of SNL that I haven't given a ton of thought. Is like he said, people don't have a lot of confidence, so they put it towards the end of the show, 5 minutes to 1.
Yeah.
When no one's really watching, which it never dawned on me. Like back then, that was literally for no one. Now the last sketch of SNL can air whenever it does, and 5 minutes later, it's up on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, and anyone anywhere in the world can watch it.
Right.
Like, there's a ton of SNL sketches that at that time, until they started airing on E! And Comedy Central, like at that time, you were just never going to see it again. Which is pretty crazy. So it makes a lot of sense why SNL back then would hammer stuff into the ground, because legitimately, like the first 5 times Wayne's World was on, there's a great chance that there's a lot of people that never even saw it, which is crazy to think about.
And you would never see it until the second.
You would just never have another opportunity. Yeah.
But here he is talking about the sequel.
Yeah, so obviously it goes on to be massive success. I didn't realize how early. I think he said Wayne's World was 91. I didn't realize it was that early.
Oh yeah,
which is pretty crazy. And he was still on SNL for a while, and obviously that builds resentment when you become a star and they're still on the show and all that kind of stuff. But the movie did so well and cost so little that naturally people were like, "Well, let's do a sequel." And given Mike Myers' resume now, you might think he was all in, but apparently not so much.
I didn't want to do a second one. It's funny. I didn't think it necessitated a sequel. I always think that when you ask somebody to come back into their world, you are bringing them at a different time in their life to complete the story. Jay and I spent a tremendous amount of time with Austin Powers, knowing why we wanted the audience to come back, and we wanted to honor them for having seen the first one, the first 2, and then the first 3. And not to be immodest, but you're here, Jay, and whatever. But the third did more than the second. The second did more than the first, and I don't think it's ever been repeated, because we spent a tremendous amount of time trying to make sure that we don't rip people off and that you understand why you're being brought back to this world. I didn't know why why Wayne's World needed to come back.
I loved the second Wayne's World too.
A lot of people do. I hear people speak of it very highly. I don't think I ever saw the second one, but it's one of those movies that as time goes, which I feel like this is true with a lot of sequels, where people are like ready for it to suck. So, either it doesn't make as much money or people are like, it sucks, whatever. Like that's just kind of the knee-jerk reaction. And then as time goes on, people are like, what's like Ace Ventura is another example of that. Where now I hear a lot of people say Ace Ventura 2 is like great. And I don't think that was the consensus at the time, because people were just like, they're doing this again, So I think that is the what some sequels are working against, but it turned out Mike Myers explained what he wanted to do with the sequel. I don't know how that would have held up. He wanted, Aurora, Illinois, the town they're from?
Yep.
To be its own country. Like Wayne gets his own country.
That's so dumb.
They realized that it wasn't part of the Constitution or something. I don't know.
That is so stupid.
The explanation was too long. I would have left it in, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Because they basically did like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they'll come, right?
Yeah.
So they basically did a Field of Dreams type movie where if they book a concert, people will come. Right. It was kind of like a play on Woodstock, which fit perfectly with the theme of the movie being about rock and roll and stuff.
Yeah, you don't think him being the ruler of a nation would have been as relatable?
No, that would have been very dumb, and I'm glad they didn't do it.
Sometimes, every once in a while, we stumble upon the suits being correct on this show. Once in a while, they have some good ideas.
Yeah. But that's a cool stat, though, about Austin Powers, that each movie makes more than the previous. That probably doesn't happen ever.
I'm pretty sure when we talked about bad sequels, I thought The Hangover did.
Did it really?
I could be wrong. The third one might have made less than the second one. I could be wrong.
Yeah. That I could believe the second one making more than the first, because the hype around the first one was so crazy.
Yeah.
But the second one wasn't that great, and the third one really sucked.
Yeah.
They're all the same anyway.
True.
But next we have Austin Powers.
Yeah, so this is just a little bit him talking about Austin Powers, which is really resonates with me much more because Wayne's World came out the year I was born. So Austin Powers has much more of a place in my heart, which is when you hear people say like Stavros Halkias made a movie. Let's start a cult, I think it's called.
So funny.
It was very good. And the main thing I heard about it was people say it's a 90s comedy.
Yes.
And what they mean by that is no, you don't give a fuck with the plot. Like the plot was good enough that you could follow the story and watch out for the jokes. You know?
Right.
And that's what they mean by 90s comedy. I think one of the best examples of a 90s comedy. I mean, like you can point to Adam Sandler, like Happy Gilmore and movies like that, or Jim Carrey. I think right in that realm to me for 90s comedy is the Austin Powers movies. Like they're very dumb, but purposely so. And there's a lot of funny shit in there. A lot of it is really stupid. But as a kid, it really made me laugh. So this is him talking about Austin Powers.
For me, Austin Powers was that kind of cheeky chappy. It was everything that my dad was proud of being British. But another key ingredient of that was Burt Bacharach, and that there was a 60s that Burt Bacharach embodied that I hadn't really kind of seen put into the movies yet. The 60s that most people had done was Woodstock, hippies, but the one that I loved was the moneyed 60s, the International Man of Mystery 60s. And I think the biggest influence was the movie Casino Royale.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah. It's clearly a like a spy parody, which parodies are something they kind of stopped making for a while, and Austin Powers brought that back. And after Austin Powers, you had like the Scream franchise and all those movies. Obviously, Walk Hard, I love so much. So like it Austin Powers brought that back a little and did do a very good job of making fun of those movies. And I think the key for parodies is to some degree you have to love the genre. And you have to also appreciate what's bad about it, which it seems like Mike Myers did very well with the ridiculous names of the women and all that kind of stuff. And it's a rare movie. Like that was it was quoted to death. And this is what I say, I think it hurt Will Ferrell a lot, which wasn't Will Ferrell's fault. But every asshole who wasn't funny replaced the idea of having a personality with just quoting Anchorman when that came out. Like you heard it on Sports Center, everywhere they wanted to sound funny, they would say, you know, the whale's vagina and all that type of shit. Anchorman was quoted to death, and I think it hurts how people remembered the movie. It made it less rewatchable at a certain point.
Billy Madison's the same way.
But Billy Madison's a little like that, where like that character is supposed to be stupid, but because of so many people quoting it, now when you watch it, you're like, oh, this is stupid.
Yes.
For whatever reason, I don't have that feeling about Austin Powers. Maybe because it wasn't as much of a monster as the other movies we mentioned. Like it was very successful and people quoted it and it was Halloween costumes and all that stuff. But then it kind of went away.
I mean, the "Yeah, baby, yeah" was maybe one of the most quoted things of all time.
Yes. No, but you're making my point. And you're not seeing my point. It was quoted nonstop. Shagadelic Baby that I said to start, like all that horseshit was quoted nonstop. But you can still watch that movie and be like, this is dumb and funny. Like it didn't hurt the movie to me.
The plot, the plots have more going on in them also. Like there's an actual story being told in it.
Yeah.
Whereas like Anchorman's like, we do the news and that's basically about it.
But yeah, like Austin Powers was a success and made a lot of money considering its budget. But what greenlit the sequels was how successful it was in DVD sales, as often happened for comedies. Like the studio wasn't that into making another one until they saw what a monster it was in DVDs and rentals. So that was very big for it, and that's when they brought back it for 2 and 3, which, as Mike Myers said, both made more and more money. And that's another thing. I'm going to quote Matt Damon again. Who would have thought I'd be quoting Matt Damon twice in this episode? But Matt Damon talked about how the death of comedy is no more DVDs, no more rentals, all that stuff. Like what would be the mark of a lot of great comedies is like they would do okay in the theaters, or sometimes not even okay. like Office Space, I think made nothing, and then was just a monster in DVD sales or like a Blockbuster, whatever. And even TV shows like That's the Story of Family Guy and Chappelle's Show. Like these were monsters in basically after they aired originally. So
Family Guy literally got canceled and then came back, which never happens.
Yeah, and so that not existing anymore. Like now you'll hear people say Pop Star, the Andy Samberg movie is great. But in theaters that made nothing. And no one really talked about it because it just got buried on whatever streaming service. And then finally, when it popped up on Netflix, people were like, hey, this is pretty good. Like that route doesn't exist for comedies anymore, which is why studios stopped making them. And studios started focusing on movies that make $1 billion instead of 70 million.
Yeah. And comedies never really have the like action movies and stuff is almost like you need to go see it on a big screen. Comedies you can watch in your house and it really doesn't change the way you see it.
True.
Next, and I'm just realizing my childhood was full of Mike Myers going.
That's what I'm saying is like your instinct is not necessary. You don't think of him as big a star as Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler.
Mm-hmm.
He was for it. He absolutely was. Yeah.
Between Wayne's World, Austin Powers, and the next movie we're going to talk about, he was there for like 15 straight years.
And I liked Shrek. I think I was a little. I think you and I were at an age where it's like we watched it, but probably didn't tell our friends we watched because we're like, is it gay that we're watching a kid's? Like, we were kind of on the cusp.
I was 11 when it came out.
Oh, so I would have been younger then.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong. Right. But yeah, I remember like really liking it, but kind of think I was worried I was like too old for it, so I didn't appreciate it. I watched it with my niece and nephew. I'm like, this is a great fucking movie.
I watched it like 2 weeks ago with my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this still kind of holds up.
Shrek 1 is legitimately a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll talk about Shrek here.
I love the idea of taking a fairy tale and turning it on its head and having it be that all the traditional bad guys are good guys and all the traditional good guys are bad guys. And I realized it's a dramatic role. I mean, halfway through, I went, there's an emotional center here. You know, the old joke, I wouldn't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member. I have always felt that way. The concept of going from a self-loathing ogre to a self-accepting ogre was meaningful to me.
It actually is like a cool concept for a kid's movie. Like the idea of flipping it on its head is pretty cool. And obviously Eddie Murphy is great in it, which it's kind of funny where Eddie Murphy and Mike Myers had similar trajectories in their career as well, where they both ended up having franchises where they played multiple characters, wind up in this cartoon, and then end up doing like kids movies.
Mega powers combined.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny too, because that's another thing where like you would assume, and I guess in a way he was, but you'd be like, oh, Eddie Murphy is the lead of this or the star of that movie. But again, it's underestimating how big Mike Myers was. It's like, okay, we'll have Eddie Murphy play the second role, and for the lead, we will get Mike Myers.
And they for sure got the voice from the sketch he used to do on SNL, the Scottish Dad.
Yeah, I mean, it's also Fat Bastard. It's just like it's his dad's voice. That makes like I actually think him doing that voice makes the character better than what Farley would have done.
For sure.
But that's our next clip, right? Hearing about Chris Farley.
Yep.
So it's a famous story now. I think most people know that Chris Farley was not just originally supposed to be Shrek, but they recorded like 75% of the movie with Chris Farley, I think. And though some of that has leaked since, and you can even see comparisons with Farley's lines and Mike Myers' lines and how they redid it. But this is Mike Myers talking about how he figured out that it was supposed to be Chris Farley.
Looked at the maquette, the little, it's made of clay of all the people, and it looked exactly like Chris Farley. And I was like, and so I was at this meeting, this is my third meeting, and I said, guys, was this offered to Chris Farley and then he died? Everyone looked at their shoes. I said, no, but seriously, really? No. I went, oh, okay. I get into the parking lot and I turn and I go, yeah, I think this was Farley's. It was. And I was right, but they didn't tell me anyways.
It's a weird Hollywood thing where it's like, why not tell him?
Yeah, I know. Like, what's he going to be like? Oh, I can't do this. The guy dies.
Chris Farley died. It wasn't like they really wanted him and they settled for Mike Myers. I mean, technically that's what happened, but like Chris Farley died. I don't get it. What could they have done?
Right.
But Mike Myers was like, can you at least not have it look exactly like him? Like that was a big bone of contention for him. And that is a franchise that he did not have total control of, unlike the other two. But he did like make enough changes to kind of make it his own. Like he kind of demanded the Scottish accent, not having it look like Chris Farley, all that sort of stuff, which a little foreshadowing, some people might view as difficult.
I want to know what that Shrek looked like.
It's just exactly Chris. It's Matthew. God damn it, I'm forgetting the character's name. Shit. SNL character.
Oh, Matt Foley.
Yes, thank you. Jesus.
Next we have lawsuits.
Yeah, so this is where Mike Myers' career started to take a turn. And this is what I didn't fully realize. I'd heard he's like difficult or like kind of an asshole, whatever. But I always attributed like the lack of Mike Myers' relevance in the last decade or two. I always said that was because of The Love Guru. And it was always amazing to me. I was like, how does one movie derail someone's career? Like I remember watching season 5 of Entourage after Medellin. And I'm like, Vincent Chase's career wouldn't be that bad because of one movie. And then I thought about Mike Myers. And I was like, I guess it is. So we'll talk about Love Guru later. But as I think makes a lot of sense, there were other factors that contributed to Mike Myers not being around as much in the 2000s as he was in the 90s.
Probably the film that got closest to happening, though, was Sprockets, starring Mike Myers. After the success of Austin Powers, Sprockets was optioned and production began. But Mike Myers was ultimately unhappy with the script they landed on and walked away from the project, prompting lawsuits from both Universal for $3.8 million and Imagine Entertainment for a whopping $30 million. Eventually, Steven Spielberg and Jeffrey Katzenberg had to step in to mediate. They negotiated a settlement where Myers would play the Cat in the Hat. This seems to have been the beginning of the end for Myers' career as a leading man. Since then, he's voiced several Shrek movies and made appearances in Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards and the Queen biopic, Bohemian Rhapsody, both of which he was fantastic in.
It's really
this is for me to editorialize. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Like they're like, that's what started his downfall. He went from that to many Shrek movies. He was in a Tarantino film.
Well, yes, but not to the same degree. If you think of Inglourious Bastards, you're not like, oh, the Mike Myers movie?
No, I know, but it was just funny. It was funny wording.
Yeah. So we'll get to all those that gentleman mentioned. But the interesting thing to me is that lawsuit included Brian Grazer, who was supposed to work on the Sprockets film with him, and they ended up just hating each other through this process. Like I think Brian Grazer called him a bigot. Like it got really ugly to the point where, as they said, like Spielberg had to step in, which is pretty crazy. And ultimately, Mike Myers ended up doing the Cat in the Hat movie. But with the Cat in the Hat, he made a lot of odd choices. This is, I believe, after we keep mentioning Jim Carrey, after Jim Carrey does The Grinch. So you kind of see this trajectory of like that type of comic now doing kids movies. Also, Mike Myers is in Shrek. Seems like a natural fit. But this is a little about the Cat in the Hat process.
While its abysmal Rotten Tomatoes rating of 10% should indicate what a flop The Cat in the Hat was, the devil was in the details of Myers' take on the seminal children's classic. Almost every review cited the filmmaker's bewildering choice to infuse the tale of the mischievous feline house guest with decidedly off-tone and crude humor. But the more particularly scathing criticisms fell directly at Myers' feet, like in the Dallas Observer's takedown titled Kitty Litter, which stated the producers may as well have skipped the hassle of securing licensing rights and simply called this mess Mike Myers and fur. Ouch.
So pretty rough. They like the lady said there, 10% on Rotten Tomatoes is already bad enough. But like apparently people on set didn't like him. You also start hearing stories of, and we'll hear how Mike Myers defends himself. Mike Myers lends himself another defense that makes me think he's guilty of all this later in the program. So we'll hear from him again. But there is like on the set of Wayne's World, it's not just creative stuff where people accused him of like freaking out because his bagel, they had the wrong butter for his bagel or something like that, like diva stuff. Well, you'll see a lot of people compare him to like Ellen, and
that's tough.
It's tough. I do tend to defend what I always think of is Steve Harvey. I defended Steve Harvey because that thing came out, the list of things you can't do with Steve Harvey. And one of the things was like, don't make eye contact with him. And Steve Harvey is a rare guy. A lot of these people avoid these accusations or have like a tearful meltdown over it. Steve Harvey talked about it openly and was like, he goes, listen, everyone wants a piece of me on. I'm the star of the Steve Harvey show, or even like Family Feud. Like, I'm the guy. I have all these jobs. I'm going nonstop at all these places. And from interns on up, people want FaceTime with me. They want me to give them some opportunity. They want to rise up the ranks here. I don't have time for that. I don't have time to look at your scripts. I don't have time for you to run a joke by me. So it ultimately just became easier for me to be like, just no one fucking look at me. And when I heard Steve Harvey explain that, I was like, I can wrap my head around that. I kind of get it. You know, it's a douchey thing to say. You know, it feels like, do you know who I am? Like that level of self-importance. But like the way Steve Harvey talked about it, it made sense for someone that has that much on their plate to go about, because your boss at your regular job might be dealing with as much or more, but they're not a famous person. So they don't have that element of, ooh, I want to be friends with Mike Myers or Steve Harvey or whoever, you know?
Right. Next, we do have him being difficult.
Yeah. So like I offer you the Steve Harvey defense, but we hear a little more of these stories creeping out about Mike Myers being difficult. And I will always say, these people always crawl out to kick someone when they're down. Does that make the stories less true? Not necessarily, but you judge for yourselves.
In an interview with the AV Club, Myers' The Cat in the Hat co-star Amy Hill painted a pretty unflattering portrait of the film's lead. She characterized Myers as a diva who constantly made the cast and crew wait while he micromanaged the entire production. And Hill isn't the only former collaborator to rake Myers over the coals. In a 2008 EW profile of Myers, Wayne's World director Penelope Spheris got her own digs in, describing him as emotionally needy and saying he got more difficult as the shoot went along. But perhaps the most telling line from the interview was her remark, maybe he could open like a children's hospital to clean up his rep. He's got to do something pretty quick. Yet another scorned cohort, Rob Fried, who produced So I Married an Axe Murderer, put things in even starker terms, telling the Telegraph, I think Mike's a visionary, but his way of getting what he wants is to threaten and express anger.
I don't think that's not rare either.
I think that last comment is probably the most accurate, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Where that guy's at least acknowledging, like, he's a genius. He's a comedy genius. But he's a prick about it. You know?
Yeah.
Which, like, I get if you work with him. You know what I mean? If you have to work with him, you have a different relationship than any of us viewers do. And just a side note, So I Married an Axe Murderer is another movie that I don't think did tremendous at the time, but like has sort of a cult following now, and you hear people say good things about it. That's really the one movie he was cast in as like he's in a movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like this big Mike Myers production, which is kind of, or it didn't have that feel like Wayne's World or Austin Powers. Other than that, he's not cast in a lot of stuff, and you're starting to see the reasons why. And ultimately, it's always going to be that debate, and there's no one answer. It's not, are Steve Harvey, Ellen DeGeneres, Mike Myers, Howard Stern, are they all difficult to work with? Or are they all tough bosses that get a bad rap? It's, of course, case by case. And the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle with all of them, where, you know, everyone can have bad days and snap, and they probably have good relationships with other people. So there is a degree of that. But ultimately, I think when your movies stop doing as well, like The Love Guru, I think it becomes a lot easier to be like, all right, we don't have to work with you anymore. That's kind of nice.
Right. I was going to say, like, when you're doing Austin Powers and he's being a problem, look what it makes. You kind of, he knows what he's looking for, and he knows that it works.
But then the studio says, all right, he's a pain in the ass, but we'll put up with it for that amount of money, and we will not put up with it for what the Love Guru lost for us, which I think we're hearing about now.
Younger audiences who may not associate Myers with Austin Powers or Shrek probably recognize his name from one of his later, less than stellar flicks, The Love Guru. The 2008 comedy presented Myers as, well, a love guru whose dream is to be featured on The Oprah Winfrey Show. He brought his Austin Powers co-star Vern Troyer to the film, along with several big names, including Justin Timberlake, Jessica Alba, and Ben Kingsley. Despite all that star power, the movie bombed hard. Against a budget of $62 million, not to mention advertising costs, the movie only brought in a worldwide gross of $40 million and change. It struggled against fellow comedy Get Smart, as well as The Incredible Hulk, marking a particularly painful failure during a bad year for Paramount.
I'm pretty sure that's Ed Norton's Hulk, too, not Ruffalo's. So.
Yeah. Well, Ruffalo didn't do one because he's a commie.
Well, all right. You guys remember, you all remember that massive hit comedy Get Smart with Steve Carell and I believe The Rock, right?
Yeah, yeah, but that's
tough when you're like that's tough. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I saw Get Smart in theaters. I remember the hype being pretty massive around it.
Yeah, but it's tough when you're like, hey, the Love Guru didn't make a lot of money, but it ran into that freight train of Get Smart.
So I couldn't tell you like the plot of the Love Guru or anything. I don't remember it, but I remember watching it and being like, that was fine.
Really?
Yeah.
I've heard literally no one else ever say that.
I didn't go back and watch it, but like I don't remember it being
swept the Razzies, as I remember.
Yeah.
Had a great run at the Razzies that year, but not a lot of other high acclaim.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying earlier in the show, is that I remember that coming out and then not seeing him in anything for a long time. And even now, there's not like a ton of current Mike Myers stuff to talk about. So you're just like, how could one movie have been that detrimental to his career? But then you hear all these stories of him being a pain in the ass. And like I said, when I hear him on Maron, and I'm just a guy that doesn't know him, so maybe I'm misreading it. I'm just listening to an interview. But when I hear him on Maron and say like, he's coming across a little phony, like that Lawrence story seems made up or this or that. That's when you start to get like, oh, maybe there's some truth to people being like, fuck this guy. And it also hurts when it's like, maybe you have no brilliant ideas left. You know, you created a few great, like legendary SNL characters. You created these great franchises and that's all you had in you, which is not to say that's a small thing, but it's just like, maybe the run is over.
But here he is talking about being difficult with Maron.
Yeah. So, and another thing I'll add to that too is, like it's not like Adam Sandler has had a wealth of brilliance in him in the last 20 years. People just keep paying him to make movies because they do well, and he seems like a joy to work with. Like he seems like legitimately maybe the greatest guy in Hollywood.
Right.
So people are like, give him 20 mil for this one. Who gives a shit? You know?
Right.
But yeah, this is his answer to the difficulty claims. And it's like we did an episode about Chris D'Elia, where if you remember, I said when the accusations came out, I defended Chris D'Elia. And I was like, some of these don't seem to add up, this or that. And then when you hear the defense in his own words, that's when you start to go, you're not really addressing everything. And we have a little bit of a case with that with Mike Myers.
Now, how do you assess the sort of rumors of you being difficult?
Well,
are you difficult?
I am a quality control person of stuff that I've created. And one of the hardest things, I'm really, really super glad you asked me that question, because it's something that I've never been in a context, a safe context, to talk to somebody who also makes things, to understand the misperception. When you write and you create and you're the owner of something, the system is geared to have the actor acts and the director directs and the producer produces. But when you're doing all of those things at once, they're really, it's like Woody Allen, it's, Steve Martin, Chaplin, Keaton, Sacha Baron Cohen, Ben Stiller. That's the world that you're in.
Yeah.
And as Lauren says, nobody's going to care about your material as much as you are. And also no one's going to care about your privacy or your money or your children as much as you're going to, is another thing that Lauren always says. And what I learned at Saturday Night Live was you have to protect your material. And I never attack anybody, but I will defend myself when they're going after the freshness of my material. And I fight for the fresh.
So a pretty good answer as far as why he would be temperamental on set or whatever. Like, I'm totally with him there. Mm-hmm. And even you might go, it's a little douchey to put yourself in the category of all those names that he rattled off. But like, legitimately, he was at the time. Like, that's totally fair of him to put himself in that category. Where I start to say, like, yeah, but that's not really what people were accusing you of. Like, he goes on to tell the story, and he tells us in a few different interviews. And it's what he tells Maron as to why he was difficult. And he tells the story of how the studio wanted Guns N' Roses song in Wayne's World instead of Bohemian Rhapsody. And he really fought against that and was like, I don't think it makes any sense for the character because Queen was kind of on a downtrend at that time. And Guns N' Roses was massive, like maybe at their biggest. And he's like, it doesn't make any sense. Also, I don't have any jokes about Guns N' Roses. Like, these jokes are about Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody. So that's the only way to me that it makes sense. That completely is something you should fight for as a creator. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't bring up any of the stories we heard about this person or that person saying, yeah, he treated me like a real piece of shit and because I was beneath him.
But like, if he does bring it up, though, what good does that do? No one's going to believe him anyway.
Sure, there's absolutely that angle of it too, because there's other people I didn't believe that I didn't include. Like, there's some story. A radio DJ told a story when some of this stuff came out. He goes, "Oh yeah, I worked on the set of The Love Guru, I believe it was, and I was security, and there was this whole big secret of." Like what Mike Myers was going to look like, and like he didn't want people to look at him, and he's like, so anyways, I looked at him, and the next thing you know, I'm fired. And Mike Myers responded to that by saying, I don't know that story. Like, I don't know who this guy is or what he's talking about. Now, to me, that says like people around Mike Myers might have overreacted, and he doesn't even know. So that lends itself to people having this animosity towards Mike Myers when it's not even really him.
Right.
So like I said, I do think with a lot of these people, the answer lies somewhere in the middle. And I think the best example is Howard Stern, because we saw a lot of this stuff play out. Howard could be a ruthless prick to people, and he could also be very generous. And he gave a lot of people a life that otherwise wouldn't have had one or wouldn't have had that quality of life. So, I think people contain multitudes, I guess is what I'm saying. And there's probably a lot of aspects of Mike Myers, and maybe for 2025 especially, he wouldn't have been the best boss, but he was the boss that those movies needed to be created at the level that they were, Yeah.
But we're at our last clip here.
That's kind of a sad way to end. I was like, he never did Norm Macdonald's show or anything. God damn it.
I know.
Which is surprising. Like, there was some overlap there, but they were in sketch or two together, but I couldn't find any interaction or Norm talking about Mike Myers, unfortunately. But since The Love Guru, like he had that small role in Inglourious Bastards, and then years later you see him. Probably had a Netflix series a couple years ago, and that was the first thing he really did. And then there was this Gong Show thing that did you know this existed?
No.
I had no idea this was going on. Mike Myers is just hosting the Gong Show, and it started out as a character that no one knew was him, I guess. Like, I don't know. It was the weirdest chapter of his career that I found.
One of my favorite things you ever did was the Gong Show, and just the fact that you did it is one of the great things a comedian of your level has ever done, that you have had this career and then you did the Gong Show as a character and didn't tell anyone that you were doing. And I guess the question, like, as you've done so much, you've had successes, what excites you?
Well, that excited me. I loved the Gong Show. To me, that was punk rock. I was a punk rocker. To me, the Gong Show was punk rock. I never missed it. It was the internet before the internet. Do you know what I mean? And it was, as I said, my company is called No Money Fun Films. I love, and I was on a comedy circuit in England, which was, a guy who had a drum set that had like a rotisserie chicken in it. And like, it was the craziest thing. The one guy's name was Melt It, and he would melt a block of ice 50 different ways, and that was his act. And you'd go, oh, this is going to be sucky. But then the audience was like, 39, right? Got some road salt. He would lick it, took a blowtorch to it. And there was just in England, there was such a wide, it was all amateur hour. And one of the things of growing up in a Liverpool house is, if I had a friend who wasn't funny, my dad would say, oh, we can't come around anymore. He's not funny. And if you came into a Liverpool house, you need to have a song, a story, or a joke. You know what I mean? And that, I never lost my love for that. And so when they said, do you want to do the Gong Show? They were like, man, you probably won't want to. I said, yes, I do. And there's a British comedian in mind that I want to do it as, but I want it to be that you think he's somebody in England. And I love doing that show. That was like summer camp for me. I fucking love that show.
Very weird, funny thing. And I guess it worked because I've never heard anyone be like, hey, do you know Mike Myers is hosting the Gong Show? in England or whatever the fuck. And just to clarify, we mentioned he grew up he was born in Toronto, and his parents are from Liverpool, just to clear that up if there was any confusion there. But a very, very weird end to Mike Myers' career. And he feels like a guy that should, and I guess this is kind of what Tarantino tried to do with him. But he feels like a guy that should pop up in like an HBO dramedy as the dad or something, you know what I mean? But I don't know what it is. Either he was just too difficult, no one wants to deal with him anymore, or like, to be fair, Mike Myers' characters were always like, big and outrageous.
Right.
Like, I don't know how well he plays subtle, Yeah,
and there's also always rumors that the next Austin Powers is coming.
Listen, I liked all three Austin Powers. I'll be honest with you.
I loved them all.
Maybe it's because I was a kid, but I liked Goldmember, which like people mocked, but I enjoyed it.
I think that was my favorite one.
And as a kid, I had no idea Goldmember was also Mike Myers.
Oh, I didn't at first either.
Yeah.
I am clicking his IMDb for upcoming.
Is Austin Powers 4 on there?
Austin Powers 4 is on there.
They did leave it with a cliffhanger. Scott is evil now. Ooh.
And Shrek.
I don't know that we need that, but I'm sure they'll keep pumping out those Shrek movies for sure.
Until they make a bad Austin Powers, keep them coming.
It'd be very interesting. Here's the thing. I
old.
just don't think Austin Powers 4 is what's going to redeem Mike Myers' career,
Well, he's not really in I'm going to be the big guy for a long time. He had it, and that's usually how it goes. And then you just kind of...
True. But I just don't like that's not a movie that's going to come out and people are going to go, we need to see this guy in another thing. And maybe Mike Myers doesn't give a fuck. Yeah.
I think that movie does huge box office numbers, though.
Oh, I don't think it would.
I think it will.
I think that's a right to Netflix.
No, you don't think that goes to theaters? That was pretty big.
Happy Gilmore 2 didn't.
Yeah, but he's got a Netflix contract.
I know. Yeah, maybe it would be different. I don't think that would make a ton of money in theaters. But you know what, Mike? I challenge you. Make it, because it's been on IMDb for like 15 years. So enough's enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it says rumored, so it's not definite.
Yeah, they keep teasing it. I don't know what the thirst is for it, but Craig will go see it. So
I will go see it. You won't
That's
go see
something
it
for you, Mikey.
You wouldn't go see it?
I'd go see it.
Yeah,
we'll go together. How's that?
It sounds good. Blind Mike Project meetup.
Yeah. We'll go see it together. All right, guys. I think that about wraps up our Mike Myers coverage. Did I miss anything big?
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So
maybe is his roles, though small, in that Tarantino movie and the Queen movie, they were actually great. I liked it.
And the Queen movie, maybe a little too on the nose, but I guess a nice homage to Wayne's World,
That's what it was. It was on the nose, but it was like a good on the nose.
Yeah. Shout out to Mike Myers. This, I guess you could call it downfall, right? Did we determine that?
Well, let's see. Austin Powers 4 might bring him right back to the top.
Well, I'll go back in and retitle it "The Rise and Fall and Rise Again" of Mike Myers if Austin Powers 4 ever comes out. But
it's almost tough to call it a downfall because like Shrek is so big and they just keep making them.
True, but even that there was a big gap between 4 and 5.
But it's also like cartoons, maybe not the same.
Yeah, it doesn't feel the same, and it's not his baby, I don't think.
You can call this episode Mike Myers downfall ? You be the judge.
What say you, America? But yeah, let me know any other suggestions. Like I said, we're going to do the other guys that I mentioned, Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler. But someone suggested, shout out to whoever suggested Mike Myers the other day, because I was probably going to do one of those two soon. And I was like, you know what? I'd like to sink my teeth into old Mike Myers first. Because I think it's
we talked about doing Mike Myers from the jump.
Right. Heavily requested for sure. But someone mentioned it just the other day when I was looking for an episode to do, and I was like, oh, perfect. So shout out to you. Keep suggesting in the comments. We appreciate you guys doing that. It helps more people find the show. If you like, share, comment, subscribe, and support the show for free that way. Also, wherever you get podcasts, leave a 5-star review, wherever you're listening to this right now. And become a member if you want early access and bonus content. You can do that on Patreon or YouTube for as little as $5 a month. So consider subscribing. We appreciate you guys doing that. And go to verygoodshow.org, root around and see what's there.
Yeah.
And hackridestudios.com. Support the people who support this show, for God's sake. And we will talk to you next time on Why Are You Laughing?
Zip it up and zip it out.